and move on to basically talking about exactly the same thing in just more of the same.
That's a great line.
I've got a bit of an introduction because we've been talking about the various manifestos. One that American viewers may not be familiar with is this character. So this is Count Binface, one of the most intriguing characters in British politics.
Do we know actually who the chap is?
Yeah, it's Count Binface.
No, the real guy.
He is Count Binface.
He's probably called himself.
He's actually changed his name by default.
I don't know the man. I don't know the origin story. The sort of Marvel movie that sort of sets up the character who
his
he was.
Costume gets more and more elaborate. It's quite a good costume. It's quite impressive at this point.
But anyway, this is the guy who always stands in the most high profile seat. So presumably he's standing in Richmond against.
It's usually
Rishi
wherever
Sunak.
the PM is, right?
Yeah, so he's standing in Richmond. Now his manifesto I quite liked actually. I had a look at it this morning. It was.
I hope it's about rubbish.
No.
Look, his real name's Jonathan David Harvey.
Oh, there we go. Oh, right. Okay, so he does have an origin story. So anyway, his manifesto: national service to be introduced for all former prime ministers. I like that.
Well, we've got quite a collection of them at the moment, haven't we?
Yeah.
There's usually only 2 or 3 alive at any given moment. We've got 7 of them.
Conscript them all and send them to Ukraine or something.
Yeah.
Like, there you go. All water bosses to take a dip in British rivers. I quite like that, Aaron. And reintroduction of CFAX and 99p flake should cost 99p. So anyway, so he's got some good stuff. Yeah. But we have got 2 former candidates for Parliament in the studio and 1 current candidate, even though you are saying don't vote for me, vote for reform, which is a bold thing for English Democrats to do. So I thought we could talk about what we would do if we unexpectedly found ourselves in Parliament. What would our manifesto be? What should be done? Do you want to start on that, Catherine? What should be done?
Yeah. You see, I think that, and I don't want to just criticise reform because we've said, they're the best we've got, but they have issued an economic policy that I just think is make a paper aeroplane out of it because it's to the right of Liz Truss and it's just not doable. And my view is that you would leave economics out of it. And the reason you would leave economics and you'd keep the status quo where you are as far as economics, but you would, if you get the immigration stuff and you get the crime stuff and you get the fraud under control and you get the numbers down, lots of these issues like rents and housing and NHS would start to take care of themselves. And we have I suppose you could argue we have a bit higher tax rate, but, things like putting in the Reform Manifesto, a 2 million inheritance tax band.
Yeah, they should make it 5.
Yeah, yes.
And raise it by the rate of Bitcoin
how
growth.
many people... It's teeny percentages, and you need people who haven't got houses to be voting for you and who can't afford houses.
Yes.
So, we've talked about, for me, it all goes back to immigration. And it goes also, then the other thing that hasn't been mentioned is this mega problem with the civil service.
Yes. There are a lot of structural problems to address first. And actually, that was my take on the Reform Manifesto as well, because I've just done a Brokenomics on looking at the Labour one and the Reform one. And what I was saying on the economic stuff is let's say I suddenly found myself in Parliament tomorrow and they came to me and said, Dan, you got a finance background, do you want to do Chancellor? I would actually say no, give me either energy or agriculture. And the reason being is there are so many ways for the money men to hurt you if you don't play along.
Well, I would try to keep... one of the things I remember about the NHS when I was talking to people working in it a while ago, a few elections, was there's just change after change after change after change. If you look at the Conservatives and Labour, it's change after change after change. It's like, okay,
yes,
just don't do anything. Keep it stable.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
I think my point on that is more that there are so many ways for the money men to hurt you if you don't play along with the globalist agenda. What you need is a bit of security. You need energy security and food security first, and we don't have it. I think we import something like 48% of our food. Our energy, something like a third every day we have to import. We normally from French nuclear reactors. Yeah. So we don't have the basic security in order to then go against whatever the globalist agenda is, which is obviously at the moment run at a big deficit, spend all this money, don't cut taxes, have massive immigration. There are certain things we need to get in line quite quickly before we come to solving all of the sort of downstream effects with the financial stuff.
Well, if it was up to me, I'd do away just for you mentioned inheritance tax. I'd do away with it entirely. I was just a state-sponsored theft, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. The idea of it in the first instance was to stop giant families hoarding wealth on a sort of national level back in the 18th, 19th century. We don't really live in that world anymore.
There is one guy who's exempt from it. Charles.
Right, okay.
He was exempt for whatever reason. They decided, okay, we're not going to apply inheritance tax.
The Duchy of Lancaster is probably exempt, yeah. But I'm interested in what you guys think about. You know what happened to Liz Truss? What was the body that just told her fiscal plan just could not be?
Was OBR?
Yeah. Like, do away with that.
Oh yeah.
Don't need that. We haven't had that for all that long. Do away with that. And what about the idea of, it's this Blairite or Brownite thing that the best thing to do is have the Bank of England be independent, and it independently sets its interest rates rather than the Treasury
do away with that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, surely it's better to have the government. I wouldn't
do any of these things. Okay.
You keep the OBR.
I wouldn't do any of it. I'll tell you why. Because you need a 10 to 20-year plan, and you cannot start doing this stuff. You need to start doing small-scale stuff at the bottom, i.e. council houses for English or British nationals. At the moment, 58% or something of social housing goes to foreign nationals. I would keep stability. Most people who we need on our side of the argument to win, who are what Lady Nugent, Emily Thornberry called white van man, are not paying inheritance tax or paying almost no inheritance tax, and their sons and daughters can't afford to buy a house. So they're not going to have any inheritance tax. This is diverting away from the problem. The issue I have with Nigel's economic policy is that you must get white van man, and you must get people living in council houses, and you must get the working class to vote for you, to have enough people, because we've got enough rich liberals who are going to hate us. We must get those people, and we have to offer those people something. The tax under 20,000, if you can do it, is doable, but it is a good thing. But the rest of it is like a rich boys millionaires club, and Nigel has a bit of that problem already. You don't want the thing that's become problematic is the enormous inequality in, and I'm not a socialist, but it's moved to the point where housing is going to cause a revolution. My daughter is a junior doctor. She's living 5 to an ex-council house as a junior doctor doing 17-hour shifts. And I, again, when she started to go on strike, I've never been in favour of unions or strikes, but why should somebody who is on benefits in Westminster be on a taxable basis when they are getting 30,000 in housing benefit before tax? Yep. Why should she be earning less than even an electrician? Yeah. And
while your daughter is driving back to her shared council house, whatever you said it was, 4 other people. 5 other people. She's having to drive past
because she is in Winchester, where houses are.
Oh, Winchester's nice, yeah.
Yeah, very nice, but you can't afford to live. She'll end up living in a camper van.
Yeah. But she has to drive past people who are given council houses who just turned up yesterday from, wherever.
We have had Afghan families given £2 million houses in Clerkenwell.
Yes.
Housing is going to cause a revolution. Rents are going to cause a revolution. That's why young people are turning left. Let's stop talking about bloody inheritance. Sorry, I mustn't swear. It's inheritance tax.
Inheritance tax isn't that important of an issue.
It isn't, and nor is what Liz Truss did or the fiscal stuff. And this is, for me, is where this reform manifesto is going wrong. There's only one party, and by the way, Marine Le Pen is right-wing socially. She's more left-wing economically. There's only one party that has a more left-wing economic political agenda in this party, which is the Social Democrat Party, which nobody's heard of. I presume William Clouston is what Nigel would say, low energy or something. But there's issues about who gets housing. What would be your top 5 policies then? If this segment is all about what we'd redo, what's your top 5? Number 1, passport issuance.
Okay.
Number 2, visas and how we're immigration per se, which we discussed. I mean, they're different because they're not the same, because passports is downstream 5 years and dual nationality, they're not the same. Those are 2. Number 3 would be dealing with housing, and particularly public housing, which has to go to people whose families have been here for millennia.
Well, the entire welfare system should be dependent on having a native-born grandparent.
I mean, one thing I would say...
and of course we went through the foreign criminals, but also, I want to ban Sharia, and I hate the burqa. I hate it. I hate it I'm a feminist, not a radical one, but I believe, I'm here, I'm a woman, and I hate it.
Even a Muslim country, Turkey, banned the headscarf in all government buildings and banks and public places.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, Cathy, is because I don't disagree with anything you said about housing's more important
it's downstream. There's what we do now, and if we got it literally today. And then there's what we would like to do. Of course, I think immigrate, but
there's my concern is we look at the example of how they got Liz Truss. Mm-hmm. So Liz Truss might have had this great programme, exactly the same as what you're saying. She might have, she didn't. But anyway, she might have had all these grand ideas, this 20-year plan, and she didn't get to do any of it because she got cooed by these small cabals in Whitehall.
Well, that's why I'm saying you need to get certain ducks in a row.
You've got to make sure that doesn't happen to you first. You've
got to get certain ducks in a row before you can go after the big money.
Nigel would have the same problem.
I'm sure he will.
His is Liz Truss times 3.
Yeah.
He's got more unfunded stuff in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there will be a globalist coup. If let's say he unexpectedly won this election, he would find that the Bank of England would start taking actions, and the rest of them would start taking actions to ensure that there was some sort of bond crisis. So they would try and Liz Truss him.
My thinking is, or my worry is that you could get into government, and you could have a 20-year plan, and then you get Liz Truss. So I imagine that you have to deal with that first and foremost, with these groups.
But the fragility has been built into the system because, like I said, we're getting whatever it is, like 48% of our food from abroad. We're getting a third of our energy from abroad. So the system has been built in a way is that if you start to deviate even a little bit from what you're supposed to do, the sort of globalist approach that all the sort of developed nations are doing, it is so easy for them to tweak something here and something there and cause a crisis to try and force you out.
Well, one of the big problems that we would face is that we can't get anybody to administer anything. Because the civil service, almost to a man and a woman, is so left-wing that they're just not going. And the other issue is the judiciary. So Tony Blair changed the judiciary, which meant that if you did not vouch for equality and diversity, you never became a High Court judge or a judge at all. Mm-hmm. So we saw, even in the Jamaican deportation flight that was about 3 years ago, where a Jamaican, they were all non-British nationals, and one of them had killed a child. The Home Office and the lawyers stopped that deportation because he hadn't been given a mobile phone's SIM card and his human rights had been offended. So the issue is that, I think you would need to take action in the way that Ronald Reagan did with the air traffic controllers, which is say, if you don't administer this, we're going to find a lot of people.
I wouldn't attempt to reform the civil service. I'd just set up a new one.
Well, that's one of the things reformers said, to make a new department to do, and they've been saying this for quite a while actually, and staff it with just new people, what they've termed true believers, whatever that means.
Take Osborne House, a couple of hundred of sensible people, and form a new civil service and grow it from there, and then just shut down the existing one. Same with the BBC, same with the judiciary.
The other thing that that reform has to do, and it hasn't done, and I think it's a big problem, is it doesn't have the UKIP branches and it doesn't have grassroots, and that's because of the way it's set itself up. And until that does, it's still going to have a problem, because when it needs 200 people out, or it needs to find those people to administer stuff in local areas, it doesn't have that depth.
Yeah,
UKIP does still exist, of course, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's sort of like a dead moribund thing.
Yeah.
But do you think Nigel can't just say to them, exactly as you said earlier, just said, "Look, get on board with us here"?
Yeah. Yeah, well, UKIP is sort of on board, but he hasn't
the infrastructure of it.
But he hasn't. There isn't any infrastructure left.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
We
and the other issue, the real issue, is the age, because there was this issue that lots of UKIPers were really old.
Yeah.
So the issue is, how do you get the young to
TikTok.
understand that housing prices and rent prices are related to the number of people? And they still don't seem to get that connection.
Well, Nigel has, as we spoke about yesterday, got a bit of a following going on TikTok. So
yes.
hopefully the younger generation was sort of
I'm not entirely sure.
joking about how if Labour reduces the franchise down to 16, 17-year-olds, that's just another boon for Nigel because they like him rather than Labour. But who knows? I mean, that's all speculation.
Are those videos going out on TikTok? Are they genuine or are they AI generated? Is he really
both
playing
things
Minecraft?
are happening. Yeah. No, the Minecraft one I saw today, I'm pretty sure that's fake.
Okay, right.
But he does have a real, genuine TikTok presence.
Right.
So anyway, my just worry is that before you'd have to be playing like 3D chess with Whitehall. And not just Whitehall, but there's like some sort of evil nexus, isn't there, between the civil service and the mainstream corporate media. Because Liz Truss was taken down by...
banks.
And the banks. What was it, the OBR?
The OBR, the Bank of England.
Right, so the OBR and the Bank of England and the corporate mainstream media sort of got together.
Yeah.
And, there was all sorts of weirdness going on with Rishi's bloodless coup. What on earth really happened there behind all the closed doors? I don't know. I'm not sure many people really know what really, really happened and why in all of that. But you'd have to guard against that first and foremost, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because otherwise you just won't get more than a few weeks in power.
The system has been built in a way so that it can never go backwards. And actually, you can see this in the Labour Party manifesto, where what Blair did is he came in and he said, okay, let's take all of these areas of government and make them a quango and then put our people in control. And if you read the Labour Party manifesto, they're doing the same thing. Everything that's still left within the democratic purview is going to be pushed into a quango, stuffed with their friends to try and make it impossible to go back.
It's legal warfare. I mean, you've seen what's going on in America.
And that's the thing, is like if our people ever came in, it would be a genuine challenge to get even the basics done.
Yeah. Yeah, so I imagine one of your first battles would be that. You know, like I love the idea of getting rid of Tony Blair's Supreme Court. Just abolish it. You know, on your not first day, but your first bill is abolishing that or
but you have
that.
to realise, as I said, that is why you need to keep the economics as stable as possible.
Yes, I agree with that.
None of this getting rid of £2 million, which also has a perceptual issue that it's rich boys, because so few people, ordinary people in Swindon, pay inheritance tax.
Right,
because they get two of them in the first place. So, you've got to be over £500,000, and most of the population would like to have a £500,000.
Right,
so this is why it's such a bad policy. It comes across as too many rich bankers and people, hedge fund people, and that's not the image you want. You know, I know you laugh about what was it? The woman who used to have a caravan in the Labour Party, but you do need a few caravanners.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We have to get the working class and the middle class. Once there's a swell of support there, that's the ball game. Right? I mean, that's the absolute ball game.
I mean, I certainly think you could do... I mean, one of the nicest things in that is obviously the VAT reduction, which, I don't know, is a minor point, but there are 16 million small businesses in this country. They are lifeblood, and so many people stop working when they get to the 85,000 threshold. Do you know about that?
So which one?
The VAT threshold.
Oh, are you talking about for small businesses?
Yeah, but it's critical because people just stop working. Half the country stops working for the rest of the year and goes on holiday because they're either VAT registered or they're not VAT registered. But I mean, again, it's how much does that cost to do, and how much does it cost to get 20,000? You see, everybody not paying tax under 20,000. How many billions? For me, the easiest part of this jigsaw is to cut the 57 billion out from the Bulgarians and the housing benefit and the claims on the other side. That is an easier target to do.
I'd stop all foreign aid 100%. Not a penny. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Not a penny. We need to invest loads of money here. So, yeah, all foreign aid, just end that immediately. I mean, I'm not going to lose a wink of sleep over that.
To be fair, you're not going to move the dial on any of this stuff until you look at the big line items, which are pensions, NHS and welfare.
Sure. One of the things, just to go back to the point when you talk about what would I do, this idea that you have to make sure that you're not just, you don't get Liz Truss within a week.
Yeah, that is legitimately my biggest concern. All of this.
Well, the NHS, I would do again. I don't think Nigel's going quite the right way with the private stuff. Yes, it may need to be done in the future, but there are a couple of things. I set up a health charity in Nepal. These are people with flip-flops or no shoes, and we charged everybody like, the equivalent of £10 for an appointment. And boy, the missed appointment stopped instantly. Instantly. We waste billions. The next thing on the NHS that I would do is I'd say, we give out people £20 million from ambulance chasing lawyers. And the doctors who are working are in fear all the time of making a mistake and losing their license. Or I would say, you've got free healthcare. You can take it or leave it, but you're going to sign away your rights, because with the exception of about 1 in a million doctors, Dr. Shipman, most doctors go in it not to kill you. They go in to help you, and they are well-meaning, and they're not planning to make a mistake and cut your wrong leg off. So that's number 2 I would do. Number 3, health tourism, costing billions. If you're not resident, you're not eligible. I would put bonds on everybody coming in here. I would put for people coming in on tourist visas. If you come, everybody has to have £5 million of health insurance that you can buy, which we would buy if we were going to America. And I would put bonds from high-risk countries. Singapore used to do it. Whereas if you had a maid, not only did you have to have a bond up, but you would basically get imprisoned if she got pregnant. And so they used to keep them in on Saturday nights. Now that's quite draconian, but basically you would put a bond of £5,000, £10,000. And by the way, that isn't even enough, because overstaying a visa is worth more than £10,000. You would need to imprison the sponsor of that person if they don't. So
that is legitimately something I'd always wanted to do. Is every person who does come here needs to have a sponsor. Yeah. And if the person who came here commit a crime, then both of them serve it. Yeah. Yeah. Because then you're going to be very careful about who you let in.
I think this stuff, these boats, these illegals could be stopped so quickly with just the threat that you are not going to have anything. Singapore allows everybody, and it's surrounded by poor countries and less developed countries. It allows almost every national, including Nepalese, to arrive on a 2-week tourist visa. And it doesn't have an illegal problem. Now, why?
No
because
benefits?
They get 0. They're not allowed to sleep on the street. They will be picked up by the police and sent to the airport.
Yeah, Singapore don't muck about.
Everybody knows that's going to happen, so you don't bother.
I think you even get fined there, don't you, if you drop chewing gum and
You're
things.
not allowed to have chewing gum.
What broader point I wanted to make about the sort of the Liz Truss angle, or just getting removed from office before you get a chance to do any of this stuff about housing and immigration and everything, would be that you need to make sure, pardon me, that, how to put it, okay, David Starkey, I think, put it quite well, that Parliament should be supreme. And that's one of Tony Blair's biggest crimes, is that he broke the sort of absolute authority of Parliament in various ways, all sorts of ways. Lots of power and things go to quangos and all sorts of third parties. And it used to be that, an act of Parliament was sort of absolutely supreme. And so I think you'd have to address that first to make Parliament great again, so that if and when you pass bills going forward after that, it's actually ironclad stuff.
So the system,
so you could pass a bill saying, let's get rid of loads of quangos. Let's change this and that. Like big things like the Supreme Court or like the Bank of England. It all counts for nothing. Or making a whole new department for remigration or something. It all counts for nothing if Parliament is weak as hell.
Yeah. So the whole system's been built to be a ratchet, and if you want to go backwards on the ratchet, it is going to be really painful, because people will make it painful because the system has been designed that way. You can't go through a lot of the institutions that have been set up that are nominally supposed to do this stuff, because they're just full of placements. We're not going to tolerate any of this. So yeah, I mean, it is an almighty challenge, and it might be the case that maybe a revolution is the only way to get through this.
But that's sort of the thing I'm talking about. You're talking about maybe a battle of wills. It's difficult to turn the cog back or whatever you just said. No, nonsense. I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, if Parliament is supreme, then there's no battle of wills. It's Parliament's way or the highway.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yes.
We need to return to that sort of paradigm, and then obviously have a government with the political will to do what we want. They're two big asks.
That'd be nice. Let's leave it there for that segment.
Hi folks, thanks for watching. This is a clip from a broader podcast called the Podcast of the Lotus Eaters. It's live 1 p.m. every day UK time, Monday to Friday. And if you want to support us, you can sign up for £5 a month, help us keep the lights on, because of course we're demonetized here, and go and watch Lads Hour. Lads Hour is one of my favourite shows, because it's basically, and I guess there's no easy way to describe it than calling it The View, but for men. We talk about whatever we want, but from an unabashedly masculine perspective, and we have a great time doing it. So come over and watch that.